Greetings and welcome back to the channel. This one, just a little bit of a palate cleanser from all of the recent MWS Top 32 content, in that it will be a quick battle report from a local tournament that I went to here in the Czech Republic yesterday. Generally speaking, we tend to put sort of written reports into the Czech Discord, but I'm lazy and hitting record and then chatting is both easier and perhaps a little more engaging. So here we go. So it was the event at Kostelec and was run by one of our Cartographers Cup teammates, Kafer, and he, along with a couple of other of his locals, basically, as far as I can tell, it's something like a pub, which is very Czech in terms of a place to host a gaming tournament. But yeah, so we're sort of walking past all the barrels and kegs and all that stuff, and up into the sort of the back of the pub at the top, and there we've got some tables set up. So quite a cool feeling for a tournament, and we had actually like a wood fire in the corner, keeping the room warm and so on. Which was, yeah, very cozy and really nice feel to the place. So, yeah, appreciated that. And also, it was only about an hour and a half's drive from our home city. So that's nice not to have to sort of, get up at stupid o'clock. I mean, it was stupid o'clock for me, but that's because I wake up very late every day. Anyway, so yeah, that was the sort of intro to the place. We had 14 of us, I think. Might have been 12 in the end, maybe there was one or two drops, but yeah, we had that sort of, local tournament sort of size, and that is several of the Czech team. We had the two best players in Bratislava, and then a few other players from different areas as well. So it was a good spread of our local meta, I would say, pretty representative. And a lot of those guys met up on the Friday evening and then made use of the pub. And then, and so on Saturday morning, it was quite funny to see half of the group completely fucked, and the other half pretty fresh. So anyway, on to the games. Round one was Raid the Vaults standard deployment with Take Prisoner, Sweating Bullets, Let Them Bleed, Deathbeds, and In Your Face. My intention for this event was to not play a Sami. That won't be my intention moving forwards necessarily. But for this very first event after the Cartographers Cup and MWS finals was sort of done, I wanted to spread out a little bit more and change my mentality to look for opportunities where some of the masters that I do play would be very effective, rather than looking for the schemes which Asami can play within any given pool. That was a bit difficult on this particular one because I couldn't write a better pool for Asami if I tried. So it was like, damn it. I've gone into this event thinking I'm not going to play Asami, and then the Asami pool pops up. In future events, if that happened, I would simply be picking Asami there. So this followed on from a discussion after the finals, well, not the finals, but after the MWS sort of series event at the end of the year finished for me when I got knocked out by Pope, who's about to play the finals. So that'll be fun. When that happened, we were sort of chatting about how my Asami had been very, very predictable, which it absolutely was. That's the negative of being a one trick, is that if people do manage to sort it out, then you are pretty screwed. And in this case, that happened to be the case. But we were saying that even if you're able to answer Asami, usually that answer is both master locked and very skewed. And so it was sort of like, well, even if you can answer Asami, can you answer the rest of Thunder's? Probably not, because the Thunder's roster is just so strong and so varied. And so we were saying that if if you met a Thunders player who genuinely played all of the good masters, which is most of them, then that would be a truly frightening thing to behold. And I was thinking, well, then what the hell am I doing? Why am I not that guy? I have found it incredibly useful, and I would still recommend it to anyone, to one trick, one master at a time, in order to learn them, in order to get that experience and to really dive deep and find answers and learn a keyword, or a crew. But then I think the evolution of that at the end is to say, right, I've done that for all of those masters, so now's the time to learn how to zoom out a bit and basically pick from those masters and try to stay relatively fresh with them, maybe get a little bit better at playing masters that I haven't played recently. So that's a big that's a big weakness of mine, is that if I haven't played something in the last month, I really don't feel comfortable dropping it in a tournament. But I decided to sort of just get over that for this particular event and maybe upcoming events, and say, right, which master from the Thunders roster really works well into this pool or against this opponent or against this matchup faction-wise. And so that was the plan. And so we came into round one, and I hit a Neverborn opponent, actually an opponent that I've never met. So he's fairly new to the scene. He has been playing other systems, and he has got 20 plus games of Malifaux under his belt, so not a complete beginner, but certainly not of an equal experience level within Malifaux. And it was really nice to meet new players, especially in the local scene, right? It's cool when you see fresh blood and people joining the tournament scene, not just sort of hanging around playing some casual games. So that was great. And he was playing Neverborn, and so I was thinking, right, what can I play here that isn't Asami? And I thought, well, from my stable, so my stable of masters is Lynch, Lin, McCabe, Yoko, Shen, and Asami. But I decided not to play Asami, so basically all of the Thunder's Masters except for Mei, Misaki, and Yanlo. And in most of those cases, I only play one of the titles, but with Lin and Asami, you can play both. So that's about 8 Masters to choose from in terms of titles, and but I'd sort of decided I wasn't playing 2 of them, so it's like, right, which one can we play in this pool? And it basically came down to Raid the Vault standard with a bunch of killing schemes, so we're moving on to our sort of more fighty crews, which means McCabe, Lynch 2, and Shenlong. But I find Shenlong's benefit is more being able to fight with just his core pieces and having a couple of really good schemers like Wandering River Monks or Banying or whatever. Four Winds Golem can become a schemer in an emergency. You can hire Desper. That he's sort of got that flexibility, and so I don't think that just let's go in the middle and kill is where Shenlong truly shines. Of course, he can do it. He can do it very, very well. He's a very, very strong master. But if you just want to kill people, I thought it's probably McCabe or Lynch. Obviously, it's actually Asami, but in this context. And then it was Neverborn, and I'd been talking about my issues fighting Nekima 2 and Dreamer 2 as a combination, sort of finding something that can fight against both. And Pope Darpa had been talking to me about Lynch 2 and how much he dominates the Dreamer matchup, and then he'd gone on to demonstrate that. I think you can find the game on my channel if you look for it. So I thought, okay, then what I want to know is, A, do I agree? Does Lynch 2 dominate Dreamer? And then 2 is, or B, I can't remember which one I said first, is even if that's the case, can it deal with Nekima 2? Can it deal with whatever else Neverborn is going to throw at you? Maybe it's Castor or whatever. So I thought, right, this is the time. Then let's drop Lynch 2, and then let's see what happens. It was in fact Dreamer, and he was absolutely right. So Lynch 2 just has the mathematical profile to one shot, or at least single activation, so many models that Dreamer wants to hire. Especially the Insidious Madness, that you just clear his Lucid Dream models off the table, you clear his scoring models off the table, and you threaten to clear him off the table, and there's not a whole lot you can do about it. I also found a sort of configuration of Lynch 2 that I was happy with, using Thangyong and Mr. Tannen, along with Minako Rhea. So you'll hear that a lot today. So Minako Rhea, I think, is astonishingly good now, and I was using her a lot in a lot of different crews, but in Lynch 2 also really handy. And I probably should have been looking for more obey plays, but the walk, charge, crit strike, and then finish plays were just so perfectly lining up that it didn't seem really necessary to lean into the obeys. I did use one obey at the very end of the game to move Minako back across the center line because he'd taken prisoner on her. So that game worked out as my opponent hadn't really played against Lynch 2 before, didn't know what he did. I did my best to explain, this guy will murder everything you have and you can't really kill him, but you can say that, but until you've seen it, you don't really understand. And so he played very carefully. He played with a very scoring mindset, trying to figure out how to get his schemes, how to score strategy. He was able to score, I think, 3 points in the end. He got strategy, take prisoner, and 1 point of deathbeds. He managed to kill my low river monk that I'd taken. I think if you've got Thang Yong, it is usually really, really good if you can heal him, because yes, he has a lot of mitigation, but he still wants to take the hit often, and you start to run out of stones very quickly if you only use stones to reduce and you don't really have any healing other than his bonus. So I was able to score almost everything. It's Raid the Vault, so once you've killed them all, you can just leave a model, to stand and score. And scheme-wise, I think I took In Your Face, yes, and Sweating Bullets. So probably. Yeah, I think so. Sweating Bullets. So it really wasn't a problem to score those. Although, funnily enough, I forgot that Maddox was my highest cost model, and because normally in that crew instead of Minako, I would have had Kitty. I sort of just normally score In Your Face rather easily with Kitty at the end of the game, but in this case, Maddox was stood back in my deployment, having fixed my hand every single turn and been an absolute goddess. So I didn't have Kitty to score In Your Face, so I only scored 7, I think. No, or even 6. Maybe I didn't even get the last... I didn't get the first point of Sweating Bullets because I killed all of his henchmen before they got anywhere near the middle. So we move into round 2, and round 2 was up against Jurai, so the solid Outcasts player from Bratislava, who I get along with very well, and... yeah, he was talking about that he wanted to sort of give his Outcasts and the Ashes models within them, one last run before he potentially switches faction to go and have a look at something else, which was interesting. And I was also very excited to play Lin 1 because this is a pool where you can definitely play her, and I was looking for a reason to play her because I haven't played her for a while, and she's probably my favourite master in Thunders. So yeah, we had a go at that, and the pool was flank ballots with deliver a message, hold up their forces, power ritual, outflank, and ensnare. So lots of scheme marker schemes, and obviously Lin 1 can both place and move and deny scheme marker schemes very, very well, and ballots, so reactivating models and getting more AP, especially having bookkeepers who effectively have 3 AP where interacting becomes important, and having the paper tiger whose leap basically is that sort of movement AP that you need to get to places and vote, or using intimidating roar to push your own models. Was very, very useful. My opponent dropped Tara, so very often plays Tara, especially against me. It's something that I think, if you think you are somehow disadvantaged, and whether you're right or wrong, if you think you are, then dropping Tara changes the game entirely. So you stop playing Malifaux and you start playing the Tara minigame, whereby positioning is entirely irrelevant on your models, and it's just, do you have fast or not, and then I get to pop out wherever the hell I want and vote wherever I want and do whatever I want, and it's your job to try and solve that puzzle. So Tara doesn't play Malifaux, she just creates a puzzle and then says to your opponent, can you solve it? The good news for me is I've played against Tara a lot now, and so I feel like I can kind of solve it, but it was still challenging to do that. He had a couple of very brutal black jokers, one on a summon and one on the attack that would have killed the Silent Protector Jade Rabbit. I was running my usual Lin 1 crew of Map and Paper Tiger and Double Bookkeeper. normally supported by Sun Wukong and Bill, but I've exchanged Bill for Minako Rhea because I think she's unbelievably good, and the extra stones let me get that Silent Protector on the rabbit. And then I changed Wukong for Thang Yong, because obviously if you're playing against Obliteration, then having a berry demise isn't very useful. So Than came in instead. And also that gave me a little bit more unpack and maybe a little bit more ways to disengage from his shitters. So a lot of Tara's game plan is to summon some shitters and then just have them engage your stuff and be irritating. Than can run up and Righteous Protector and move those things out of engagement so that they can go and do what they're supposed to do. So that was very handy, and a lot of the game came down to that sort of thing. So Minako Rhea was once again able to summon a Wanyudo by forcing something to attack her and then killing it. And that Wanyudo then ran off and murdered 33. That allowed a bookkeeper to take control of that ballot and vote it up to 3, and then go and mess with Tara, who was in the corner scoring Power Ritual. My rabbit was able to score my Power Ritual, and I basically used my tiger to push Lin 1 all the way towards the opponent's corner, slowly during the game. You know, each turn, Roar, she goes forwards, and then she does her thing, which is often just refilling my hand by removing scheme markers. And obviously reactivating a model, and then eventually I pushed her right up towards the corner so that she could then bonus to put a scheme towards his corner, and then use her ability to push that scheme marker into the corner in the last few seconds of the game just to score the final point of Power Ritual. So in the end, I was able to score most of my points. I think I got 6. And my opponent got 3. Couple of nasty black jokers, couple of mistakes really cost him, and but I think we both had a good time. He enjoys playing Tara and wanted to sort of give it one last run out, and I really love playing Lim 1, so I think we both got what we wanted out of the game. Obviously, me taking down the win was particularly nice from my point of view. So we move into round 3. I think there's only 3 undefeated players at that stage. One of us was paired down. It wasn't me. I ended up against the other 2-0, which was the other player from Bratislava, our Rezer player, Christoph. And he was attempting some sort of Scorpius. So he'd play... in the sense that we are counting different titles as being different. So he'd played Seamus 1, he'd played Seamus 2, and so I was aware that he wanted to play a Scorpius, and that he has a slightly limited pool of other masters that he was likely to play. So I know he likes to play some Reva, and I know that he likes to play Jackdaw, and he dabbles with McMorning as well, so I was sort of thinking it was probably one of those 3. And we were going into Cloak and Dagger on Wedge with In Your Face, Protected Territory, Information Overload, Power Ritual, and Sweating Bullets. I felt like Cloak and Dagger was a very good opportunity to try Yoko 2, and that obviously with Jackdaw being a real possibility, having a lot of access to some really good Ruthless models would be handy. And so I went with Yoko. He did go with Jackdaw, and I was then sitting with Bill and Fuhatsu for 2 sort of really good Ruthless damage dealers. I took Minako Rhea again, and she ended up being pretty pivotal. My Chio and Terracotta Warrior basically just ran to the edges to score the Cloak and Dagger markers that I'd put right on the sides. And that ended up being very pivotal because his plan was to run a very bricky Jackdaw 1 with Double Hanged, Grave Spirit Touch, Montresaur, and Ferryman. That was something he hadn't played a whole ton of, with a Dead Outlaw behind. And I basically ran Raijin with Bill and Low River Monk and Terracotta Warrior. So Raijin, Bill. I feel like I'm missing a model here. Raijin, Bill, Minako, plus Yoko, obviously, and then Chio, Low River Monk, Terracotta Warrior. We're definitely missing a model. God damn it. It'll come back to me. So what I did was moved Raijin. We were on wedge, so Raijin was front and center. I moved him up and threw a shockwave into his the front of his deployment. Oh, Fuhatsu. There you go. So threw that shockwave into his deployment, and then he started to set up the kill on that Raijin. So he moved his totem up to get betrayal aura on it. He moved Ferryman up to try and put an upgrade on him, and I basically just put a few resources into defending against that, and then that involved, getting some card flips going. So one of the things that I noticed with this crew is that normally I've got the Kunoichi shooting Fuhatsu to hand out focus, and I decided not to run that this time. The downside of that was that you didn't have a bunch of cards in your discard, so you didn't have those 13s nice and early for Yoko to be able to go and grab them. But if you throw a model up, chuck a shockwave in, maybe try and flip a card on a bonus or something, which I couldn't do, but if you could, and then the opponent puts a few attacks into that model, and you maybe have to cheat a high card to defend one of those attacks, then all of a sudden Yoko can go, grab a couple of the high cards that are now in the discard, and then gather intel to bring Raijin back behind a cloud. So I sort of ran forward, ate a bunch of attacks and resources that he put into it, and then brought it back behind the cloud, and then was obviously in a position to heal it up if I wanted to, or then go in again. One of the reasons for taking Raijin is that Gather Intel pushes the model, ignoring models, but then forces all models within 2 inches to take a TN13 willpower or be distracted. On top of that, if Raijin moves for the first time in an activation, he forces a TN12 defense duel or take 1 damage and stun. So by Gather Intelling Raijin into a bunch of models, you force an enormous number of simple duels. They're almost certainly going to have some serious card pressure or fail those duels, and then when they're distracted and stunned, they're really doing a lot less damage into your models. And when you are able to sit and tank your opponent's offensive output, your pass tokens become much more valuable. So when you know that you're not at risk of dying immediately and that you're able to save the model or heal the model or then activate that model and deal damage back or get value, you are able to then pass. And when you're able to pass efficiently and effectively, then Yoko really starts to shine, and it becomes almost impossible for your opponent to score any cloak and dagger points because you get to activate last, usually by a margin of 2, and thus can steal their tokens or take advantage of the newly positioned strategy marker. So yeah, Yoko 2 becomes much more powerful in that regard, and so I found Raijin, even though there were no markers that my opponent was playing with. Obviously, if there were, that would make him even better, but even though there were no markers involved, his ability to simply stun and soak damage and heal, and also force movement duels when you start near him and then bring them back into him. He was just acting as a tar pit all of his very own. Obviously, there are some offensive profiles that can deal with hard to wound and that can deal with defense willpower 6, but he's an annoying bugger to kill, and when he's got well versed as well, he doesn't always take resources to defend him. So yeah, against Jackdaw, the most important thing is usually number of cards in hand. So it's just a case of being very, very careful not to cheat whenever you don't need to, accepting damage, realizing when a model is dead and not putting any more soul stones into protecting it, just saying, right, okay, Bill here is just dead, he's distracted, stunned with an upgrade, he's in the middle of 2 different models, you've just got to let him go. And while that sucks, the good news was I hadn't taken In Your Face, so he went for Bill very, very hard, presumably trying to deny In Your Face, and I'd chosen not to take it, so I took Protected Territory and Sweating Bullets instead. Sweating Bullets with Minako Rhea is particularly good because people don't like attacking her, and she's very likely to be in the action and able to get to an opponent's henchman or master, which she did. I correctly identified that he was likely going for Sweating Bullets, but I guessed the wrong model. I thought he'd have it on Montresor, he had it on a Hanged, so he was eventually able to score that, but not a lot else. So his plan was to break me. He basically just wanted to brick through the middle and break me, and then once he'd broken me, he'd be able to go out and deal with the sides. But the plan fell down with a couple of jokers, basically. So Minako forced him to attack me, his ferryman, and then he flipped black on defense, and it's like, okay, fantastic. Sorry, he flipped black on the attack, but unfortunately I flipped black on defense as well, so I wasn't able to defend that attack and put the upgrade on him, but the following turn I did get the upgrade on him, and then I managed to flip red, so he wasn't able to cheat. I get the upgrade, he dies, becomes a Wanyudo, that Wanyudo goes and slaughters the dead outlaw and then puts my scheme markers down for protected territory for the rest of the game, and basically that whole swing meant that Minako lived, and because Minako lived, I was able to snowball the game, and because he wasn't able to break me, he was never able to deal with the two models on the side that were just constantly scoring strategy every turn for me. So in the end, 8-1, but it was actually a lot closer than that, because had he managed to sort of break through me or like empty my hand, which he was very close to doing several times, then all of a sudden executes start going off. If the jokers didn't go the way they did, then there's no Wanyudo, there's no Minako, and then maybe sweating bullets is harder, and so on and so on and so on. So in the end, a little bit of a closer game than it looked, but 8-1, and that was enough to take down the event, because there were two players with 3-0, but obviously that kind of margin of victory was very much in my favor. So yeah, that was the event at Kostelec. The next video will almost certainly be the finals. That game is happening at 9 p.m. GMT +1 European time. So hope you'll enjoy that one, and I'll see you for it. Have a good one and take care.